In Sheol's grip, adrift from reason, with blazing spite they smite night's season. For eons bound, contrite lights roll, from Duat's flight, invictus soul, at God's behest, what fell has risen. Through Oz they quest, Bethel's time prison, their cause oppressed, when Ohm's fain light, but soul gains might as heat takes toll.
Sometimes God sends us warning signs of danger when the times come to make important changes. The value of a thing that sustains has outlived its use, or when decay has set in and value is eclipsed beneath a weight that requires greater energy to endure than the energy it saves or produces as a valuable resource. Eventually those warning signs become painful. God's whisper becomes a scream. We interpret this signal intuitively because God rarely speaks directly, so it might come in the form of a general discomfort, decaying aroma, or an incessant feeling of hidden threat. And then when that whisper becomes a scream, the warning signs grow more apparent. Discomfort graduates to pain. A dying aroma becomes gangrene, produces disease, illness sets in, and a hidden threat is revealed by shock. Then a dam breaks, flood rushes forth, fire explodes, chaos reigns. A house descends into madness. Arguments ensue. Disagreement forms an impenetrable rift. Lines are drawn, and divided perspectives progress toward war. And that's what we face. Chaos, madness, division, war. It's everywhere. And this is because a great time of change has come. The old ways are no longer sustainable. And depending on how the elements are oriented around us, we perceive chaos differently. If we live in the mountains and begin to experience earthquakes regularly, we understand that a looming threat has drawn our attention. And when those tremors reveal the volcano, we then understand that change has come. And the shock of what we tried to ignore, or what was ignored, has then eclipsed all the value of remaining in the path of the destruction possibly rushing toward us. The earthquake it causes shatters the earth beneath it. Storm of ash and flame severs the timelines of a future at its base, and if we live anywhere near the coastline, the waves rush to claim the attention of all who've made a life, where an ecosystem or a system of interdependence creates tradition in rhythm or in stillness or in regularity or predictability. We've entered a time now when God's scream can no longer be ignored. Change has already come to many. For some, it still remains a whisper, because witnessing these changes coming to others gives them time to process how the impact of their compromised interdependence will begin to make change unavoidable for them. That said, we've reached a point when compromise must be made mandatory for the survival of a society where interdependence permits for the impact of change felt as, say, the ripples in a still pool or the tremors of an earthquake. For those who are unaware of these coming changes, the impact on their lives will be like that last cart in the back of a roller coaster. On the first hill, it's typically the largest hill. Change will come violently and suddenly in the form of rising costs, rolling blackouts, revolution, televised as the exploits of extremists, a lack of resources to meet business demands, a lack of food when disrupted agricultural yields lessens the visits of the delivery truck, when heat waves create unsustainable demand on the power grid and there's no water, no ice, no air conditioning, foods rot, hunger sets in, and the desperate resort to extreme measures. Crime increases, but no one trusts the police. And where power is cut and cell phones have no power, no one even calls the police. So we're at a juxtaposition now between our morals and our sanity. And our irreconcilable differences will become less of a conflicting imperative. They'll instead create superficial barriers impeding the discussion of workable solutions. It's a crisis that's partly natural, partly manufactured, engineered by our vices, preventing elemental forces from flowing naturally. It dams this flow. That's essentially how the power of a demon or demonic power operates, or the will of demons. It's a damming or a barring of natural forces. And, we really have no one else to blame but ourselves. Each of us, for not seeing it in advance. Because there are enough wisdom teachings, both religious and non, that teach us about the consequences of too much and too little. And in a caste-oriented, economically tiered, resource-based system where too little drives too much, scarcity becomes the impetus of capitalism. And those with too much understand that while resources are intentionally kept limited, they must either maintain a constant supply of too little to leverage the illusion of scarcity, or increase the price and set it at too much to create the illusion of value. But either way, division wins, separation wins, creates a vacuum, an artificial pressure system between have and have not. Elementally, this equates to a forced polarity. Constant need driving constant demand. This reciprocation is what fuels our economy, but it prevents true progress toward peace. Peace has a price tag, and to keep it, there must always be conflict. And that's what must change. And the elite understand that in order to continue with this way of life, they must adapt with new tactics to maintain the illusion of control. But the problem with control and with illusion is that it requires a speed barrier on the velocity of what's known. And in the age of the internet, that's almost impossible. So instead of controlling the speed of truth through an information hub like the mainstream media, they simply poison the Nile of flowing information and let the conflict of perspective impose an unnatural speed limit on what is agreed upon as truth. Always must truth be challenged for the power of information to remain in the hands of a few. And so in the age of Aquarius, when the increased awareness of intelligent things rises to meet the demands of an increase in the velocity of supply, a new checks and balances system comes into view. And authority takes a massive step closer toward the freedom of knowing. Tyranny must become stronger, but also must the illusion of freedom. And in a society where everyone has access to every shared experience in real time, the velocity of awareness creates pressure on a parasitic species to grow more invasive. Hence, the Kraken, the mighty thing lurking at the bottom of consciousness, lying in wait for the inevitable struggle when our sudden collective awareness of vulnerability to symbiotic predators becomes an instinctive resistance for freedom. This thing is ancient, and it represents the instinct of those who maintain too much power for too long. All those who are in love with power really care for is to keep it, to grow it, to maintain it. It becomes its own entity and goes by many names. Today we call it the corporation. Its order reorients the thinking of its constituency to behave as a consuming mass. Their ideology gives rise to the values of the virus, that which invades expertly, subverts instinctively, consumes first what is fragile, replicates itself in secret, and then seeks to destroy what opposes it before awareness of it creates resistance. We were warned of it and of those who it operates through. In every ideology that takes shape around a general respect for nature, for freedom, for divinity, or for what is set apart, seen as consecrated or pure, or what should be untouched, nascent, so that freedom can be built upon a shared set of values that protects what is fragile while maintaining what is strong, but also respecting that strength should never step in the way of what is fragile without risking a devaluation of the innate beauty that is found in what is pure. This this Kraken, this corporation, this god of scarcity and subversion, finds beauty only in what destroys innocence, because innocence lies at the center of all ideology that makes us receptive to what is divine. The weaker the spirit of a thing, the less it fights. And that's why the corporation seeks to replace the spirit with artificiality that permits for the decrepit, decaying, subversive intelligence of the parasite to maintain its grip on a collective made newly aware of the power of its full potential. And we were told that in the age of awakening awareness, those who gain power through shadows would become desperate. And for ages, they've been developing their philosophies, keeping their motives concealed, waiting for the time when change is induced by a rise in the amplitude of elemental forces to crush us when shock wrecks the foundations of their power establishment. And the only thing that defeats a virus is the same thing, ironically, that defeats a lie. Truth and heat have an interesting correlation. Because the hotter something gets, the greater the test of its integrity. And so God's truth has been likened to an all-consuming flame, a fire that dispels shadows and brings inflammation to disease, a heat unbearable to scavengers that prey on the weakness of spirit and constrict the life force from the heart as its strength ebbs. Aquarius represents such a time because time flows like an undulating force, a serpent of light that rises and falls. See, in the summer, life thrives. In the winter, life dies. In the summer of Cancer and Leo, truth is demonstrated in our pursuit of divinity or divine things, in the power of the spirit of joy, of togetherness, celebration, passion, love. And the energy of the sun is shared by all things intelligent that love heat. But in the winter of Capricorn and Aquarius, those creatures that hunt in the night have their time. They have more time. Shadows and deception become things of value. The cold breaks down what's fragile, and what seeks might for the sake of might thrives. Disease and illness set on us. They descend on us with greater force. And the heat we share becomes more scarce. See, if all resources could be likened to a form of sustaining heat, then the winter becomes a time when scarcity is more easily maintained. Commodities belong to those with the power to take them by force. Weakness becomes a liability. And the impetus of any collective gradually finds that vulnerability becomes more of a liability. Femininity, and things that are soft or dependent must be reined in, or exploited as a resource. That's the thinking of the winter. The innocence of youth is sacrificed on the chopping block of necessity. And in this age of information and accelerated understanding, well, innocence of limited awareness sort of stands in the way of Aquarian values, which sort of require the speed of understanding to increase uninhibited, to permit for a destruction of sciences, old sciences, to make way for new science, or to increase the speed of science to transcend the fragile nature of mortality. But on the other side of that is Leo, when magnetism and the technologies that enhance the spirit, the interconnectedness of nature, of our relationship with the Creator, becomes what we grow keenly aware of a lack thereof in the time of Aquarius. Their natural dichotomy, Aquarius and Leo. What we pursue doggedly through insatiable desire and vacuum is fulfilled naturally in the time of Leo. We experience these seasons of consciousness through changes in our magnetic field. While our magnetic field is weakened, the signal we're always receiving from the sun and the other planets gets scrambled, weakened, like a bad radio station. The planets are, well, they're likened to gods in the various orders of our ancient secret societies. Their influence over us governs the rhythms of life, just as the organs in our body govern the cycles and patterns of behavior through our cells. It's just one vast electrical circuit that, when the heart grows weak, creates illness and discord in the homeostasis of the body. And that's when parasites take us over. Viruses wipe us out. Bad decisions grow easier to make. And the pursuit of health is taxing. And, we have to rely on medicines more often. In the season of Aquarius, or generally of the spiritual winter, the weakened magnetic field of our planet causes the dangers of this broken radio signal to grow so uncomfortable that the decision to use unnatural modes of sustenance or of life support become easier. Darth Vader doesn't look so bad anymore. And if you've noticed, through our media, through our entertainment, and the evolution of our television shows and movies, and in our music, criminals and villainy are easier to understand, to identify with. The shadows become a place of refuge. Lying to avoid the shame of expressing uncomfortable truths almost becomes a virtue. And those who subdue us through this destruction of moral pursuits find it much easier to demonize the do-gooder. Everything the sun stands for becomes anathema, and it puts pressure on us to admit what has made us weak, not understanding that we're simply under the influence of a phase in the great circuit of shifting cosmic seasons. The weakened magnetic field sends Gaia into a general conflict-oriented behavioral stasis, and she treats herself for disease. She fights back against what's eating her. All the while, the turbulence of space weather grows less bearable, so she heats up, then she freezes, because she's demonstrating the elements being out of balance. And because we receive that same signal from the very same planets regulating psychology and nature, we also act out that discord. We're the living elements, and we act out their modalities through our interactions, and the increase in pressure from the sun turns the exchange between hot and cold into an unavoidable conflict. And when the elements are fighting, and people are fighting, and nature's fighting, and everything is opposed to its shadow, we have literal Armageddon. But what prevents this is increasing the frequency of light. See, when light accelerates, it becomes more intelligent. And in ancient times, our ancestors used gold to contain the heat of light as it accelerates. They were able to produce fields where electricity can superconduct and perform miracles of magnetism, tearing aircraft and buildings loose from the ground. And we find evidence of this technology everywhere. And it's all related to gold. There are ancient texts and all of our wisdom teachings and our mythologies and our religions relaying stories of the gods who wanted us to offer them gold, or of God who wished for us to offer gold in exchange for blessings. And those stories today are retold by those who aren't initiated, who don't really know a thing about the mystery teachings of these people. They're used to spread lies and propaganda about the true nature of these gods, these planets, these luminaries. They were describing the intelligent forces in our solar system that function as a cohesive community, similar to cells in a body. And their signal from heaven to earth is strengthened when the atmosphere is repaired regularly with superconducting materials. So when we add refined gold to the sky as an aerosol, broken into nanoparticles that can be blown across the atmosphere, it repairs our damaged magnetic web. And that broken channel to the heavens comes through more clearly. This brings everything back into balance. It restores our innate connection with the planets and the sun, and it's as if the gods are pleased. This this is also the story, or rather, the secret of the story of Moses and the golden calf, because the calf is an esoteric reference to the magnetic torus, and it's achieved when we use gold nanoparticles as a superconductor that's able to interface with living things. But that's all we really need to do. Symbolically give the gold back to heaven, to God, to the gods, by adding it to the atmosphere and restoring the dying magnetic web. This this is when we experience the electrical properties of the angle of Leo, even in the season of winter, and it restores the tilt of our planet, reorients it back to its true north, and this is the reason why the people alive in the time of Gemini, which was the time of Adam and Eve, this is why they were symbolically also told by God, or rather given gold by God to use for the perfection of their forms. And I write more extensively about this in my Facebook page, in my group, Arcana of the Most High, where I go into detail about the power of gold and how it creates a Meissner field. There are many videos you can use or watch on YouTube about the Meissner field and the magic of superconductivity. It's like a form of magic. It just breaks our understanding of how magnetism functions. It's high science. It elevates the bandwidth of light that we perceive above the spectrum of the rainbow that we fall under. It's the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark, that Noah boarded, was all a veiled reference to the electrical arc in the wave of frequency we call a phase wave pattern. In Noah's day, the physics were different. It had supposedly, never rained prior to then. Humidity contained in a perfect magnetic field permitted for light and electricity to perform at its maximum potential. All things were just more intelligent. They were stronger. They grew larger. They lived longer, as the speed of contained light utilized different physics. Our channel to heaven was just more clear. It was crystal clear. And this ark of Noah, this the physical vessel that was built to harness this power, I believe it was a reference to the pyramids, and I want to say that it suspended them in time as the atmosphere condensed, as frequency fell, as light shattered and gave us the rainbow. We descended, fell into time, and mankind's lifespans had shortened because the decay rate of heat was quicker and things began to oxidize faster, or rather just to oxidize in general. But to fix all our problems, all we really need do is begin a conversation. Talk about it till everyone knows. All movements, begin with an idea. Once everyone knows it, it brings the idea to critical mass, and it takes shape through the actions of those who are most capable, who believe in it the most, who are most suitable, typically called into the open by the Creator to give it birth. And that's what we need to do. Fixing our channel to the heavens should really be our highest priority at this point, because if you look around, everyone's arguing about what it is we are supposed to do to fix the problem. So we're all becoming more intelligent about things that aren't really helping. All the while, evil advances its cause. They understand this 5D chess. They utilize divine timing to advance in their strategy, and we're behind 10 steps, 100 steps, because what we find to be happenstance is typically agenda moved at the pace of astrology. We need to learn this astrology and familiarize ourselves with prophecy to understand where we are and how we are expected by heaven's physics to transcend this threat. That should be our highest priority. This is what brings the shift back to the golden age, to the age of the fifth state of matter, which is symbolized by the fifth house of the zodiac, the house of the sun, the peak in the arc, in the wave of light's phases. It's the penta force of electricity. That's what gives us true repentance and Pentecost. And please, if you don't really know what else to do, what questions to ask about this material, feel free to join my Facebook group if this material interests you. I cover a great deal there and made some pretty incredible predictions, or half the time I'm not sure whether I'm making predictions or speaking things into existence half the time. It's really quite interesting. But if you need more information about who I am and what I do, most of my work's stored there in my Facebook group. But at the very least, please just pass this message along to others. It will eventually call forth those who will bring this into realization. That's what the sun wants from us, the literal sun, is to give birth to this new timeline by collective effort. That is how we use our cloud to its fullest potential, to realize the power of the electrical force of truth, and to pave a way for the sun to animate us through truth to the destiny, the promise of the promised land many of us are waiting for. We only need to talk about it, to spread the message. Contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.